how long does it take to become a professional dancer, or at least to get your skills up to where you could even be going out on professional dance calls? They've said that, I mean, you can book work as an actor before you're, you know, at a certain level, but they've said, like I think it was Stanislavski or something that said that it's like 30 years that it takes to before you're an actor that really knows what they're doing. And I know that that time frame wouldn't apply to dancing because it's such a limited amount of time that most people have to dance. You've exceeded that amount of time, but how long do you think it takes for a dancer to get their skills up to be considered a professional dancer?
Um, that's an interesting question. I would say I got my first professional dancing job at 19. I got in my first dance company at 20, um, which is about, you know, that's about the age people can really technically be able to do that kind of stuff. Now, that being said, I think the more life you live, the more specificity you put into your dancing, into your storytelling, and things like that. While I don't have the legs or flexibility that I did when I was 26, I think I am a much more captivating performer now than I was then. Um, because the more you go through, the more you can funnel into your art and funnel out to your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. If you listen to Lena Horne in her 20s and then listen to Lena Horne later in her career, it's like night and day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, do dancers have a union? And what kind of things can they expect from that union?
It depends on the kind of dance you're talking about. If you're talking about film and television, like people who are in The Wiz Live on NBC and things like that, they are covered by a SAG-AFTRA.
Mhm.
So, you know, yes, that is a very powerful union as far as theater goes. Those dancers are covered by Actors Equity, another well-known major union organization. As far as dance companies go, I think there are some
Or even
smaller.
performances. I mean, let's like I've heard that dancers are also getting hired as dancers slash models. Like they might have a show and they're modeling some shoes, but doing some choreography as well.
Yeah, for
Uh,
stuff like that, generally there's no union.
how much
Most
can dancers expect to make through the course of a year? A range. I know that you can't.
I have no idea. I have no
So it's
idea.
still mainly for love than necessary going into it.
Yeah. And it depends on the person. Like if you're somebody who's able to book like a tour with Janet Jackson, you're going to do pretty well. If you are in a show on Broadway, you're going to do well. I never made more money than I did when I was in Lion King because it's the highest level theatrical contract you can be in. If you're in a smaller dance company and teaching on the side and doing some concerts with another dance company and trying to do maybe a non-union music video or something, it's anybody's guess. We are one of those, like actors, one of those industries where you are going to have to do more than one thing.
Yeah. So
Generally.
most dancers generally have another job to supplement their income.
Hmm. Even the larger companies that have full-time salaries, those dancers still aren't making as much as someone who might be working in corporate America with a
Mhm.
full-time salary.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
What would be your dream project
Oh.
to choreograph and or act in as well?
Um, that's a good question. I don't know as far as choreography. There's like so many shows and stuff that are very cool and fun. And over the last couple of years, though, I've done a lot of choreography for plays, which I never thought would be a thing. But
So
I
just
know,
plays, not necessarily musicals where
not
you
necessarily
dance in it, but
musicals, but
just
plays that
mhm.
have dance is part of them and movement interwoven. Yeah.
Mhm.
So plays with a more creative vision,
Mhm.
more inclusive vision for how the thing happens. So that has been very cool. So I don't know about choreography. I don't know. It's still something over the scope of my career that's fairly new for me. Um, I love choreographing musicals. It would be fun to maybe choreograph a new musical.
Do you write it all?
I don't. I don't. I'm an interpreter of others'
You do enough other things. I was just curious. You don't really need to. I was surprised with the piano playing and would you say violin too?
violin. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a violin, and I've heard is a tough instrument to learn.
I
It's
played for 9 years.
one of the harder instruments to learn. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
um, well, two. Probably the one thing that I said earlier, whereas if you work on your upper body, no one will ever notice what your feet are doing.
Hmm, okay.
That has served me well. And then the other thing would be just the notion of my job is to audition.
Hmm.
And as long as I'm doing my job,
You're good.
that's I'm good. Yeah.
Typically, how long is a dancer's career? Again, I know you're not typical, but
Yeah. I would say typically by the time people get into their mid 30s, they move on to something else, or go into teaching full time or retire. It is definitely one of those things where physically you can feel a difference. Like 26 was probably my physical peak, and then 30 I was like, oh, this feels different. And 35, oh, this feels different. 40, it was like, wait, what? So, and so now I just know it feels different, and I do what I got to do to stay in the game.
what are some of the other viable career transitions that you see dancers making, like when they can't dance
Um,
anymore, but still
well,
want to
like
stay in and or around the business of entertainment?
teaching, choreography. Um, if I hadn't wanted to perform, I would still be a maintenance choreographer at Disneyland because I loved that job. And it's a great job. It's a great career, especially if you're kind of done with the stage. It's an amazing place to be, but that wasn't where I was, and I did
Mhm.
that for 7 years.
Mhm.
So there's that. I know a lot of dancers who have become Pilates instructors, massage therapists, things like that, where you work with people who are physical and you can still work with dancers and understand what they're doing to their bodies and, and how they
Does-
move their bodies and
Do
help
most
them.
dancers have a pretty good understanding of the of anatomy, like how muscles work and
I think generally, I think in general they do, but you most certainly know how your body works. Everybody's body works differently. But I think if you are a massage therapist, or like in my case, I have a chiropractor who works with dancers all the time, and I'll be like, "Oh, this hurts this way," and she'll be like, "Were you doing something like this?" And she knows exactly like what kind of movement. I was like, "Yes, I was." I think as people who are dancers, if you go into those kind of healthcare fields, you understand the pressure that people put on their bodies. You understand that nature to push through instead of sit down. You understand that when you tell a dancer you can do light workout, that doesn't mean you can take the whole first half of a ballet class and maybe not jump doing the floor. Because in a dancer's mind, that's light. I'm not
Mhm.
jumping, so I'm taking it easy.
Mhm.
You understand that kind of stuff because we have a wackadoodle kind of way of thinking sometimes.
Are dancers still expected to be thin in the year 2021? Is that still an issue for dancers, generally speaking?
Not as much. Depending on the industry, for like music videos or for touring, in general, yes, but there are a lot of artists coming out now who are like, I want all shapes and sizes, I want all colors. There's a lot of shows now that are and companies that want anybody. Like if you can do it and you have the passion, then bring it on. I think one of the most wonderful experiences I had was when The Color Purple was first opening on Broadway, and I got called back to go to New York for like the final callback for the dancers, and there were 200 women in this room, and everybody looked different. There was thin, there was thick, there was dark, there was light, like just people of all shapes and sizes, and it was like a beautiful thing to witness, you
Hmm.
know, as
Yeah.
opposed to everybody being around the same age, around the same body type. It was really lovely to be in a space where they like, these are our final people, and it was there was no pinpointing, oh, they're looking for this type of person or that type of person. They just wanted who could do the job,
Hmm.
you know. And so I think there's a lot more of that now than there used to be, which I love.
Yeah, I'm all about diversity too. It just makes things so much more interesting. What are some of the things that a dancer can do to hustle up work for themselves other than just waiting for their agent to call them?
These days, a great thing is finding out where some of your favorite choreographers are teaching. Go to their classes. Let them get to know you before the audition.
Mm.
Let them get to see how you move, get a familiarity with them. That way, when they're having an audition for something, and because a lot of choreographers these days do teach, that way when they have an audition and you walk in the room, they're like, "Oh, hey, Shari, how you doing?" And they know you, they know how you move. That's, going to give you a leg up. Um, as much as you can, try and find ways to get out and meet dance professionals, meet working dancers, look online for classes or for conferences, or there's dance conventions. Um, but again, it's one of those things, it's a matter of doing your research. What kind of this I want to be in this particular show. Who choreographed that? What is their movement style? Who teaches that style? Let me go learn that movement style. You kind of have to just do the homework and then go out and find somebody who can help you learn whatever it is you need to learn. And there's so much information online, and even classes online right now, so many ways that you can do that, which is great. Like when I was younger, I only learned what the people in my close vicinity were teaching. That was it. So
Mm. Can you tell us something about your work at Jack's Theatricals, directing and choreographing musicals with young performers, how you got involved with that?
I got involved with Jax because my son ended up doing a show with them when he was in seventh grade. They came to his school and did like an after school kind of Broadway review, which he auditioned for and got in, and they gave him a scholarship for the summer, and they did Hairspray. Um, my son was Seaweed. He was so good. Um, but like I remember coming to the show with no expectations. I was like, yeah, it's a bunch of little kids doing Hairspray, whatever. But it was so good. The kids were so good. I was like, she's going to Broadway, she's going to Broadway, she's going to Broadway.
Mm.
The caliber of the work was so high, the choreography, the singing, the acting, like it was amazing. My mind was blown. And so I went up to the director afterwards and I was like, okay, so this is what I do and this is amazing. And how can I help you? How can I get involved? Because I would like to work with your kids and work with you guys. And I was the first parent of a Jax kid that they hired ever. So he hired me as a music director, and I started out as a music director and assistant director for a couple of years before starting to direct shows of my own.
Fantastic.
And it's such a great organization. My son is still doing shows with them. He's actually working for the theater now as a theater tech as well. And my daughter's done shows with them. And yeah,
Sounds like a great program they've got going on there.
yeah, it really is.
Ever since I've known you, you wear your hair natural. I
Yeah.
love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I have always kept my hair natural just because that's how I like it. I have not felt pressured to change it. The only time I felt a little pressure to change it is when after I had my son, I had an infant and a 2 year old, and it was too much time to do this stuff to my hair, so I shaved it off, all of it.
Mhm.
And I had it that way for a long time. And I had an acting teacher who was like, "Did you have cancer?" And I was like, "No." She's like, "Well, then why is your hair that way?" I was like, "Well, I can, you know," but I always kind of felt like I can always wear a wig. And that's one thing about black women in the
And I like your
industry.
natural hair much better than the pictures with the wigs I saw too. I'm assuming they were wigs,
Thank
that
you.
you didn't straighten your hair out, but
No, yeah, if my hair was straight, it's a wig.
yeah.
Um, I generally wear a wig for singing, oftentimes just because it has a different look, like sleeker with, if you're doing a wedding or something like that.
Mhm.
But like with the rock band, it just depends on my mood.
Yeah. Well, it's
But
great that
I've always just felt like if I needed straight hair, if somebody really needed me to have straight hair, then I could just wear a wig because black women can get away with that.
Mhm, mhm.
But that's another thing I like about the industry right now is more and more um, in television shows, on commercials, you will see people with natural hair. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
it's great. It seems to be happening more now, which is
Mhm.
great. I just think people should be able to wear their hair however they want. Why do you think so many people are attracted to get involved in the entertainment business? What is it that has more people coming into town than leaving town, all in the hopes of pursuing some kind of career in entertainment?
I think there's something appealing about telling stories and becoming somebody else. I also think people think the entertainment industry is glamorous. Um, Oftentimes, if they have that opinion, they don't realize just how much work
Yeah.
goes into it, and how very difficult it is. Not only to actually do and perform, to act, to dance, to sing, to be a musician, all of these visual artists, all of these things take a lot of training, a lot of time, a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice. Um, but even beyond that, just being able to emotionally deal with the rigors of the hustle and dealing with the rejection. And if you're working the hours, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. But at the end of the day, all people see is the pretty, the product. Oh, it's so amazing. They dance so beautifully,
Yeah.
you know, or whatever that is.
Or
I
people
think,
walking down the red carpet.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I also think like, especially for those of us who are creatively driven, there's there's that part of you that's like that wants to be a part of something creative, that wants to be a part of something perhaps that will last for a long time, like a movie, that wants to leave that little bit of legacy behind.
Hmm.
um, I'm the voice of Carmen San Diego, whatever it is.
No matter how famous you get, you're going to be forgotten at some point.
Yeah, my husband was talking to somebody the other day who didn't know who Bob Fosse was.
Really? Wow.
He's like, did
I hope
he?
they weren't a dancer.
No, no.
At least they that's a little bit of an excuse there. But I've heard some
A
dancers
little
don't even
bit.
know who people like Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire was.
Yeah,
Some of the young people pursuing dance as a career don't know who some of those legendary dancers are. Sid Charisse, Julia
yeah.
Krause. Uh, there's quite a bit of history that people should be aware of if they're pursuing a particular
Yeah,
career.
it just takes education and a teacher that's going to present that work to you. I was teaching at a university at one point in time, a Broadway dance styles class, and I had them do three different projects, and I chose choreographers, but one of them I chose was Margin Gower Champion, who performed and choreographed some of the most amazing work throughout the 50s. And
Mhm.
part of the reason I chose that is because those kids don't know. They don't know that air, they don't know that style. And it's also a style I love to do.
Mhm.
So, I would choreograph something, so we'd have a dance, but then they'd have a video assignment where they had to go and actually research that person and write a paper on them and on their style, not just like take their Wikipedia and put it on a page, but you have to like research on video what makes their style of dancing, their style of choreography distinctive.
Hmm.
Um, that kind of like work I think is helpful for dancers, especially if you want to go into something like musical theater. Um, but if your instructors don't push you in that direction and say, this is what I need from you, I need you to research this person, I need you to find a choreographer from the 50s or whatever, um, then, you'd have to be very self motivated, or like me, a parent who makes your children watch old movies, which they love, I might add. Um, but we exposed our kids to that
Well,
stuff.
thank goodness for teachers like you, and hopefully there are many more that follow your example. How would you characterize your own choreographing style?
Oh, that's interesting. I feel like that's hard for me to say because most of my choreography is driven by the story that I'm
Hmm.
trying to tell, because a
Hmm.
lot of it has been for musicals or plays. So
Hmm.
whatever it is has been influenced by
What
the
you're doing.
overall story of, the
Hmm.
assignment. I do like rhythm. I like things that are rhythmic. I tend to be a fast mover, so I like things that move generally kind of fast.
Hmm.
Um, but then you also have to create things that your actors can do.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I think mine is just very story driven. It changes from show to show to show depending on what we're trying to say.
Certainly, fair enough. Well, Shari, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.